My out-of-body experience happened when I was 21 years old and appeared to be in good health. I was visiting my parents as part of my routine once-a-month trip, and everything appeared to be normal, at least until bedtime. When 9 p.m. rolled around, I was told to sleep in my brother's room, which I'd never been allowed to enter when I was younger. My brother was a very private and neat person, and he didn't want me or anybody else in there, as I recall. Dad and I watched TV for a few hours together, and it was now after 11 p.m. I said my goodbyes and kissed him on the cheek, and then I was on my way to the most exciting trip of my whole life. Finding this chamber, just as it had been left 10 years before, was what was on my mind at the moment. I was curious as to why, and what was so remarkable about this place that it remained a shrine for my brother. It didn't seem cozy, and I was relieved to be leaving the next day, because another night in this place was more than I could bear. As I was slipping off to sleep, my vision changed, and I discovered I was lying on my back, arms crossed, as if in a coffin. My conclusion was that I was seeing myself from a different perspective, and I observed myself for a few more moments. Then I relaxed and floated around the room. This room was quickly becoming more than I could have dreamed. This was entertaining and something that would perplex even the most astute observer. It was time to go outside, so I went to the window. However, when I gently turned, I noticed darkness and a faint light at the apparent end. I could see sparkles of dark blue, purple, and gold adorning the walls of this lengthy and very quiet tunnel. The inner peace was now engulfing my entire being, and it was enough to make this very worried girl want to stay here for a long time. I felt motivated to continue this uncertain and pleasant experience as I floated towards the light. The light is growing brighter and larger, and all I could sense was the presence of goodness, and I know here is exactly where I need to be. Finally, the end of the tunnel has arrived, and I'm surrounded in the same light that guided me here without my having to say anything. Within seconds, a lady appeared and informed me that I had a choice, and that I was young. Who exactly is she? As I stared at her, I was perplexed. I don't recognize her, but she seemed to recognize me. I'll continue to make a list of her characteristics. She has strawberry reddish hair that falls to her shoulders and very pale skin. Her eyes were a brilliant blue. It didn't matter where I knew her from or who she was at that point. I had a decision to make, and she made me feel pressured for time. I wanted to stay, but she reminded me that I was young. What exactly did that mean? Does that have anything to do with my decision? She was about 50 years old and appeared to be very happy. What a difficult decision to make. This is the nicest vacation I've ever had. No stress, no money required, and you'll never have to write another bill. Or worse, deal with the bill collector. I needed more time, but she insisted on making my decision and stated whatever I selected would be good. At that point, I turned around, returning to the way I'd come from so peacefully, and was quickly drawn back through the black tunnel. I didn't notice any of the amazing colors within the dark trip because it was so rapid. I was bottled back into my previous body, and I was a little shaken at the time. It was time for me to assess this vacation. So I went to speak with my father, who was half asleep on the couch, the TV still on. He insisted that my adventure had been a dream and instructed me to go back to sleep. I realized I hadn't slept and that this was something real and very special. That was enough for me, so I sipped a Coca-Cola and went back to bed. I hope that one day I'll be honored once more. That day has yet to come, but I am patiently waiting my next truly restful permanent vacation. And yes, with God. The second experiment. Last night was everything from tranquil and serene, or at least it began with extreme pain and suffering. I now know it was gallbladder problems and several stones. The pain was awful. My girls arrived about 11 p.m., and I was only uncomfortable at the time, but it quickly escalated into a full-fledged case of stabbing, burning, and throbbing pain inside my tummy, as well as shooting sensations throughout my body. I prayed for relief and rest. My agony level had reached an all-time high by 12:40 p.m., as I laid on my back, moaning and flailing about the bed. I found myself sitting next to what I assumed was a man clad in a white robe, with a magnificent halo of light encircling his entire body. I knew now that there was no agony inside of me. As he began to speak, I turned my head to better see him. There was no face or body to be found. Purple, dark blue, and pink were used to fill in the outline. The inside of this person was lined with large lines of color, and the aura around him was extremely dazzling. He informed me that I had taught my girls everything they need to know in this world, and the remainder I could show them from the other side after a quick inspection of his presence. My youngest daughter suddenly unlocked the door and forced me to jump back into my old, exhausted, and painful body. I was angry by the interruption, but I just requested her to be quiet and return to bed. Now I'm going to try my hardest to be comfy and sleep. It had been at least an hour of the identical pain that had previously afflicted my bodily existence. The time was 12:57 the last time I looked at the clock. After exiting my body, I felt like I was in a bright white light for several minutes. It was very peaceful and painless. I desired and required that presence. At that point, I knew he was God, my Lord and Savior. What happened to him? I didn't see anyone or anything, but there were no anxieties and the quiet and peace persisted. I just heard one short statement before he told me to come on. Without a question, I was going. Then there was a loud paper rattle. Paige was battling with a bag of chips when I smashed back into my body. Oh my goodness. I'm more than annoyed now. Extremely. It's frustrating. The ache has returned, and Paige is still awake. I need to suffer alone and desperately want to find that location and that person whom I believe to be God. Another hour passed, and it was the same old in my body. All I could think about is how I can assist you. I started praying, and now I feel like I'm floating again. The only change today is that I am completely blind, yet I'm not in pain, and everything is extremely peaceful. This is still absolutely fine with me. I'd look for the light, which I did for a little moment before Paige surprised me for the third and last time. What I screamed next as I yelled at her for not letting me get to God astonished me. I intended to tell her that I was attempting to sleep. My guilt for yelling at her was now very great, and my agony was also very high. I contacted Rusty to drive me to the hospital within a few hours. We discovered the trouble with my gallbladder there. It will necessitate surgery. After 3 out-of-body experiences in one night, I think I can finally relax about my health and the imminent surgery. God never gives us more than we can handle. I noticed that, and noticed him seated beside me as my friend. What a friend we have in Jesus. That song keeps playing in my head right now. Whatever anxieties or questions we have, God provides clarity and knowledge that most will never have until instances like this occur. I've been fortunate. My written account is what I leave here for people to read. At the very least, I have a notion about what happens after death.